may this reach all the people who need this message. I
Oh,
know it will.
yeah,
I know it will. And encourage them and just lift up our whole industry. And yeah,
totally.
yeah.
Yes, my version of a prayer. Hell yeah.
Seriously,
Rock
yeah. The
on.
intention, like that's my intention with this podcast is to, yeah, just like obviously get to know you better, which is awesome that we get to chat more, but also just, yeah, put stuff out there into our industry that makes people like, that feels refreshing to people and like inspiring to them.
Yeah, agreed. And I think my intention with this series is to not only become more comfortable with public speaking and digging into these more heavy concepts and also creating a little bit of an informational series that educates newer photographers or people who are just stepping into the industry who might not understand the weight of the work.
Yeah,
And if we can be a little bit of a lighthouse and a beacon, that is an honor, you know? So,
absolutely.
yeah. So, my name is Christina Meerloo. Many people know me as Tina Meerloo. I have decided to reach out to a photographer who I absolutely adore. Her work is fantastic, but also her energy and what she believes in and what she stands for is truly something the industry needs to know about. So this is Mitzi Starkweather, and she's a portrait and boudoir photographer. We are just so excited to be discussing the ethics of intimate portraiture. And we have decided to put together a little conversation series on photography, but also vulnerability and identity and truly feeling seen. So, this is our love letter to the industry.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for asking me to do this with you. I'm really excited to have this conversation and the next few conversations because I really think that this industry is so powerful. The work we do and the things people trust us with are really incredible. And I also feel that a lot of boudoir education can just be so focused on like just lighting or just posing or just, these little elements that are important, but there's so much more to it than that. And so I'm excited to have these conversations with you because like me, you honor this work and you pour your heart into it and you want to talk about more than just the surface level stuff. And that makes me excited.
Likewise. And I think that's what I loved about you so much right out of the gate. Just, I mean, your rawness, right? And I say that and I laugh because that's kind of like your whole thing is like raw portraiture, right? I would love for you to speak a little bit about that. And yeah,
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to. I'm like cracks knuckles, tries to limit it to a few minutes. Okay. Yeah. So I've always been a portrait photographer and it's interesting. I was reflecting on it before our talk today, like portrait and boudoir, how they've always been separated by in the industry, right? Like as these like two different genres. And I get why. And to me, that speaks so much to the ways that boudoir photography has been limited and has been like put over here. And then people try to try to elevate it like, well, no, it's fine art. So let's make it this. And like, I think one of the things that I said out loud in a talk in the last couple of years that surprised me when I said it was I said, I don't care if it's art. I care if it's honest. Because I think, yeah, you can call it art. That's great. I call it that. But even sometimes we can do a disservice to it by trying so hard to elevate it so high. Like it's not this trashy thing. It's actually art. And I'm like, okay, now you're getting kind of classist about it. Like we also don't have to do that. Like, can't we just say that, it is another evolution of portraiture. It's just another type. And what I love in my own studio, what started to happen was, for many years, I was like a modern glamour photographer. So it was come in, do the full hair and makeup. I had the full wardrobe. I had, hours in Photoshop after the session and poured so much, into like making people look flattering and, all these things. And I did print competition the whole time. So I was always afraid, okay, hands have to show the side of the hand, can't break the wall of the profile with the nose over the cheek, like all that stuff. And I'm thankful for all of those lessons now. but they really did ruin me for quite a while because I got so bogged down in all the rules of doing it right and doing it that I kind of lost all the joy. I got super burnt out. And so when I faced breast cancer in 2022, like my whole life shifted. And I was like, you know what? I've been wanting to do like raw, honest, black and white portrait series for a couple years because I had a client reach out and actually request it. She's like, I want you to just photograph me this time just as I am. It's my 50th birthday. And I was like, ooh, so it got delayed from the pandemic. So I ended up photographing her before my whole health situation blew up. And we had this session and it was like basically everything I shoot now, but it was just this one pocket of like hope. And I was like, oh, well, but surely no one else would want to do something like that. And toward the end of the session, she did just wear like a little bodysuit. Like she did, I guess, boudoir images, but it was just a natural progression. Like as she went through the session, the clothes just kind of came off and she was just more willing to embrace herself and her skin. And so anyway, when I came back from after my cancer treatment, I was like a completely different person. I didn't recognize myself. I didn't recognize what I was doing. I could still put on a nice experience for clients and create something beautiful for them, but like I was not connected to it anymore. And so I was finally like, okay, if I want to get out of bed in the morning, I have to start creating in a way that resonates with me. And so I started what I called my As I Am Raw Portrait project in early 2023. And within the next few months, I not only was it like, did it help me heal and like save my life and career and everything like that, but it was also immensely profitable. And by the summer, I had photographers asking me all over the world, Mitzi, how are you pricing this? I want to do this, but like everyone's saying like, but obviously it must cost way less, right? And that's when I finally said, no, it's like sashimi. It's not like fish you forgot to cook. It's not like you came from this grocery store and like left the frozen tilapia on the counter and then ate it. Like it's like sashimi. It's completely different. And so, or it's like the acoustic set of your favorite band. Like it's not less, it's just different. And
Yeah, it's tiny
stripped
desk.
down. Yes, exactly. Tiny desk. Oh, yes, exactly. And it's in some ways it's like even more special because it's more intimate. And so anyway, I had been, like a glamour and boudoir photographer and arch your back and stick your butt out and wear the lingerie that makes you sweaty and takes an hour to put on and you can't figure out, like, fine. There's nothing wrong with any of that. But what I realized when I started breaking all the rules was how many rules I've been forcing onto myself and my clients that I didn't even actually resonate with. And so that's what began to shift everything. And so then I ended up creating a course for photographers called the Raw Portraits course. And that's helped hundreds of photographers around the world in the last couple of years. And then more recently, I shifted that into like an online program with one-on-one coaching and support because it just needed so much more follow-up and marketing and all those things. And it's just grown to something that I never even anticipated. And it's been so beautiful because I think in some ways, just by showing up to do the work the way I want to do it, I know I help give other photographers permission to break the rules. And isn't that like what we want to do for our clients? Like we just want to give them permission to like be like, F that standard, or like, that's a dumb rule, I'm going to break it. And it's like, we get to step in and kind of lead that. And so with the style of my photography, that's kind of been that catalyst. And so it's been a really amazing journey over the last couple of years. And then especially in the last year, because I actually got a stage 4 cancer diagnosis about a year ago and in May of 2025. And so that's been a crazy journey, but all in all, it's just made me move more into authenticity and honesty as someone who used to be such a people pleaser to my core. I've just kind of like done all the opposite things and it's kind of like healing my body and changing my life. So yeah, I believe in the power
Amen.
of this work. I believe in this, like, this is powerful work and it can, but we've got to be clear on why we're doing it. And there's a lot of nuance there. And so that's what we're here to talk about. So
First of
what
all,
about you?
snaps.
Like your journey, like with your work, what kind of made you get to the point where now you're like, hey, we need to talk about the responsibility of all this?
Yes, absolutely. So I stepped into this work after, you know, my teens and 20s being very tumultuous and feeling very unsafe. And when I picked up a camera in my mid 20s, it was the art medium that I had been searching for my entire life. And it just, it helped me expand in ways that I had never imagined. And boudoir was kind of like it was a very natural progression for me to step into that type of photography because I had always been about body confidence and all that type of thing. But I never really believed it, or I never really knew the depths of it until I fully stepped into this work and I started creating spaces for women in which I was really seeing a change. And I was really seeing a ripple effect in in my clients' lives because of this work. And I realized how important it is to walk into these sessions as a photographer, understanding the nuance and the level of care that we have to bring for our clients to really feel safe and comfortable enough to step into their ideal version of themselves, right? Or their highest version of themselves is a version that is embodied and passionate and can sit in front of a camera and just be and then see those photos and be like, holy shit, I am, this is all of me. And it's okay to not accept all of me right out of the gate, but I can work through the things that I might not love about myself by celebrating the things that I do really love about myself. And for me, it's just such an honor to be able to create those spaces. And I'm so dedicated to leading other photographers towards a more ethical version of boudoir.
Mm,
Because when I was younger, I modeled a lot. And that is kind of where I learned about glamour photography and glamour modeling. And I saw the damage and I experienced the damage that can happen in a photo shoot.
mm,
And that can just be as small as somebody, as a photographer, saying like one small little thing that totally would make me unravel, you
mm.
know? And that is such a huge part of what we do as photographers in empowerment spaces. Our language is everything. And for me, making sure other photographers that are just getting into the game, I'm dedicated to making sure that they understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that comes to mind for me is, and I know I've said dumb stuff like to clients over the year.
Of
I've
course,
done this
of
for so
course.
long and like stuff that now I cringe. But one of the things that I think of so much, especially with newer photographers, is I just see them interacting with their client and they're just like, oh, no, 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 like this. No, 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 don't do it like that. Do like this. And just saying no all the time. And it's like, I know they're saying that because of their own insecurity, right? Like, no, no, no.
Projection.
They have this image of in their head, like, no, this is how it should look. So I got to keep blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, oh, like that's one of the biggest things that stands out to me now is like, no, we're got to speak in positives. We got to speak in,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, yeah, how about you just do this? Or now let's
Mm-hmm.
try this. Like instead, no, 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 no. Like, because the no, no is just like, I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And I think that's something that's like so hard, especially when you're starting out as a boudoir photographer or even just a portrait photographer with this other person, is if you feel insecure in what you're doing, they are automatically assuming at all times that they are messing everything up. Like
Absolutely.
that's like their default coming in is they're assuming it's
Yes.
their problem. Because if you ever hear
Yes.
people talk about bad portrait experiences, I've never heard someone talk about one in the way of like, oh, that photographer actually didn't do a good job. And I'm like, oh, I had a shoot one time. Yeah, I did a boudoir shoot time, or I did a shoot one time and yeah, but like it just didn't turn out that I was just so
Mm-hmm.
awkward. Like they always blame
Mm-hmm.
themselves, right? Have you
Mm-hmm.
experienced that?
Yes.
Yes. Like, and it's
Yes.
like, oh, guy. And then I will usually say, like, wait, but did that, I might ask a couple clarifying questions. And I'm like, it was actually your photographer's responsibility to guide you through that better. Like, that was
Yes.
not on you, you know?
Yes. Exactly. So I totally agree with that. I guess, the next thing that I would want to ask you about is What are your thoughts on why people are seeking these more authentic, intimate experiences?
Ooh, I think we're past the Sears portrait era, as a society. Like,
Huh.
I know that, like the 1 hour photo, like people, besides like for niche, like brand shoots, you know what I mean? Like, which is, those can be super fun. It's like, the, okay, we all have these now. I'm holding up my phone. We all have these now.
Hmm.
We all have really good cameras in our pocket all the time. All of us do. So we no longer need to hire a professional photographer to simply have a photo of something, which for much of history, in the, barely 2 centuries of time photography has existed,
Right.
that's why people did it. And so it's so interesting that, one, we now have a camera just readily available at all times. But two, we are now, as a society, for the most part, used to seeing pictures of ourselves, which even 10 years ago we weren't. Like, think about it, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
we are used to seeing pictures of ourselves all the time. 20 years ago, you could go through like the kind of hiding from the camera, and then, oh, you're the auntie who isn't in any of the family pictures. She's the one who hates being in pictures. And you could just kind of
Right.
avoid it all the time if you wanted to. You can't
Right.
anymore. You can't. And so I think it's made people, it's just been a big shift. And so, but an authentic picture of yourself that looks like the real you, that's not your selfie face with your controlled angle, with your controlled filter, with your controlled everything, that's a different thing entirely. And so it can be unsettling to people, but at the same time, I think that's why it's so powerful. And then the other piece in there is AI, right? You
Mm.
could have this quote unquote ideal version of yourself with no pores and a slightly daintier nose and a submissive expression in your eyes and bigger lips and perfect lighting and whatever outfit you don't even own. You can just have that generated like very easily now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but an authentic portrait and especially the experience of being photographed, that's still something that I think that gets more and more important. And it's requiring photographers to become more and more intentional about the actual experience that we carry our clients through, because it's not just about the picture anymore. It's just not. I mean, I would
Mm-hmm.
argue it never was, but it certainly is not now. That's a great end result, but the experience and everything else, that's what's going to really pour into, not just the success of the shoot and the client, but also like how profitable you get to be as a photographer. Because
Right.
the better the experience and the more tailored it is, and the more a person actually feels seen, the more valuable that experience is to them.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're
Yeah.
not just, oh, a copy and pasted, like, oh, that could be anyone. And I think, especially in the boudoir world, I think that the Instagram culture of it has, one of the ways that I've really seen it just, and I have a shorthand, I just call it butt boudoir, but you know what I mean? Just the butts,
Yeah.
just the butts up in the air, which is
Mm-hmm.
fine, great. People buy those
Hmm.
photos, like they'll always buy that one. But in now we've had a good decade or so of just boudoir existing on Instagram that looks anonymous because the people in the photos, don't want their face shown, and that's fine. And the photographers want to show the images. So it's crazy to me how like homogenous so much of it has become. Like, you could go look at an Instagram page of maybe like a boudoir photographer, and you're like, oh, that could be 25 other photographers I've seen before, but all the images look the same. The styling's the same, the posing's the same, the lighting's the same, everything's the same. And like, you can run a profitable business that way. But especially with the photographers I've coached, it's like they usually get to a point where they're kind of like itching for a little more, because they're like, well, I don't really want to do it the way everyone else does it, but I'm not really sure what else to do here, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of that, I guess, ethical responsibility as well. Like, are we really shooting it for what that client wants? Or are we shooting it because that's the way that we want to present our Instagram so we look good to the other boudoir photographers? Or
Or
is
that
that
we've been told by other boudoir photographers who we look up to that that's the way to shoot and that's what
right?
sells the best. And
Right. Should I really pressure this person into wearing lingerie when they told me that they actually don't like lingerie?
right.
Stuff like that, which like I used to do, because I used to think, well, that's that. And so it's like, what's your definition of sensuality and intimacy and all that? Because that is going to inform so many of the decisions you make and help guide your clients through in the studio. Because the reality is they're going to follow your lead either way. No matter what your beliefs
Hmm.
are, they're going to follow your lead because they don't know what they're doing. And that's also why they hired you. So like you have something very delicate in your hands, I think. I don't know. Can you speak to
Seriously,
that?
seriously delicate. Actually, I wanted to go back to what you were saying about like why why this authenticity in portraits matters so much right now. And honestly, as you were speaking, I was like, it's basically like a renaissance against like Instagram face.
It's
And
yes.
the highly like how homogenized women's faces have become because of these beauty standards that are so unbelievably unattainable. And, you know, our boudoir photography was reflecting that.
Yeah.
And I think now that, you know, people are having these deeper conversations about what it means to not subscribe to that standard of beauty. And I think they might want more for themselves. And they might want to see themselves how they are meant to be seen,
Yeah.
you know? So I Renaissance is really truly how I feel about it, like a
I
rebirth.
I agree. I totally agree. And I think we're like, in our culture, we're just starving for something real now more than ever, like something human,
Seriously.
something
You are
raw.
not kidding.
Right. And to speak to what you just said about, feeling beautiful in like their own way, it reminds me of I got a DM from a guy I went to high school with, and you're gonna think this is sounding like this is going to a bad place. It's actually like one of the most cool, encouraging things anyone's ever said to me. So this guy I went to high school with, like briefly, like when the high school I only spent 2 years in across the country, he DMs me last year and he is just like, hey, I saw that you just moved to Kansas City and I actually have a cousin who lives there. We're really close, like we're like brother and sister, and she just had a baby. I want to gift her a session with you. And I was like, oh, I love
Oh,
that. Like so
that's
sweet.
so nice.
Yeah. And so he's like, yeah, I just want to pay for like the session and like a package of portraits and everything. And he goes, it's really interesting. He says, I've been following you, just on social media for like the last, 15 years or something. I don't know. We graduated in 2008. So almost 20. Okay. Almost 20 years. And he's like, it's been really cool to see, all the ways that you've empowered people through your portraiture. And he goes, this is what he said, and I'll never forget. He goes, it used to seem like what you wanted to show people through their portraits was, let me show you how beautiful you are. And he goes, but now it's like you're saying, let me show you how wonderful you are. And that, right, you're just like, oh my God, that has stuck with me because that has been so true of my own journey in like my own self-worth and finding that, yeah, 10, 15 years ago, I truly did believe that the highest compliment for a woman or the best thing you could feel about yourself was that you're beautiful. I really did think that, and
Hmm.
there's no fault to me in that, right? That's
Hmm.
culturally, that's what we're told
Right.
should be, right? And now I'm like, no, like that's great, but I really feel like my appearance is the least interesting thing about me and like and of any other person, right? Because what you
Right.
believe about yourself is what you're going to believe about your clients. What you
Right.
want to heal in yourself is what you're trying to heal in your clients, like as a boudoir photographer, as someone in this space, right? So the work
Absolutely.
is so incredibly indelibly tied to you. And so yeah, him saying that was just like, wow. And it's seeing, being able to accept your physical body or your uncovered body and your sensuality and all that is just like one little facet of that, right? And one thing you said earlier was about the ripple effect. You were like, oh, I see people have this shoot and this experience and a ripple effect. And I can totally relate to that because there have been women who have been in and out of my studio over the years, especially return clients. And it's so interesting. I hear stories, not that they even would talk about it during their photo shoot, but like, yeah, Mitzi, after that shoot with you, I actually did leave my abusive husband. And then this happened. And then I did this, or I did actually leave that terrible job that I hated. And I decided to go to, and I'm like, I've heard these stories of like these actions that the portraits empowered them to take in their real life because they're like, oh, if I can show up, especially now with raw portraits, if I can show up as I am in front of the camera and accept it and then actually fall in love with it, then like I can show up that way in my real life. Like that's huge, you know?
Yes.
It's so huge.
Yes.
And it's like, yeah, a lot of women do book a boudoir shoot for the traditional reason of I'm going to give it to my male love interest. Like, cool. That also gets a lot of women into the studio who would never otherwise do it and still have a transformative experience. But I'm like, oh, if we talk about it
Absolutely.
like that's the only reason, like, it's just so
And honestly,
drastically
I don't
limiting
care
it.
how they get in there as long as they get in there. Because
Yes.
once you're in my studio, that's when I can bring the magic. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
really, and how you were saying about, or when you were saying, you just had said something about, damn, slipped to my mind.
Oh, I know. I kind of went two
But
different directions with that.
yeah, no, that's okay. And I wanted to talk about like, oh, yes. So, the one thing that I notice is that the ripple effect isn't just for the client, right? The ripple effect is for a lot of people in the client's life as well. Because an embodied and an empowered person, woman, is a beacon. And I really believe in the power of confidence, and not just confidence, but reclamation, right? Because confidence feels good, but reclamation is something that lasts, right? Because you've gone and you've taken back whatever it is you lost. And that, in my opinion, is the power of these sessions, right?
Yes. Absolutely. Like, you probably have, because clients, they open up to us in these sessions and they always apologize. Oh, sorry, I'm talking. I'm like, no, I'm like the bartender. I'm like the hairstylist. Like, I find out people are getting divorced before their spouse finds out. Like, I find
Yeah.
out, people are pregnant before their family
Yes.
knows, just things like that. And I cherish that. Like, that people are able to talk about things like that because, yeah, they feel so stripped down and so vulnerable. And they know that they're just held in that space. And like, it's really amazing.
Yeah. It is. It is so amazing. And so why is it that boudoir and intimate portraiture is so misunderstood by the greater industry? If we're doing this unbelievable work, what the hell? Where's the
Oh,
disconnect?
misogyny?
The
I mean,
patriarchy.
the, right?
I know.
Which I will remind
Mhm.
everyone, the patriarchy is not knows no gender. Like the patriarchy is not a gender. It's
100%.
not. It's an
Right.
idea. It's a system
It's a system.
that only just a few select people at the very top benefit from, and
Right.
the rest of us don't. But
Right.
yeah,
It's like an MLM.
absolutely. It really is. It's the only MLM that doesn't start out with "Hey, girl."
Only sometimes it does.
Only sometimes it does, you're very
Right.
right. Yes. Oh, it's so true. But yeah, it's like these beliefs and these things that come up. And then like I feel like lately a refrain I've had in my studio, even with my client last week, she's 59, just fabulous woman, like didn't plan on getting undressed during the shoot, did, as happens very normally. But she was saying, something like, oh, I feel bad. Like I've always been so hard on myself. Oh, we're so hard on ourselves. Oh, and then I'm like, and I say this thing that I've been saying so much, I'm like, stop beating yourself up for beating yourself up. Like now you're being
Mm.
hard on yourself for having been hard on yourself. You have been societally conditioned to be dissatisfied with yourself because it makes so many people so much money.
Yes.
So much money, like
Absolutely.
diet culture and, just cosmetics and everything, exercise. Like it's all just been commandeered by people who want to even sex, right? Like
Yeah.
when
Well, see, that is.
when the
Oh,
establishment owns it, that's the most when you can control people's view of sex and their sexuality, like literally their life force, their creative energy, you can control them much better. And it's not to get too tin hat about it, like,
oh, girl.
but
I am
that's just
all over that.
that's the reality. Like that's the reality we live in, and we get to decide what we do with that. But and I've seen it, like you probably too. It's like my the way I speak and write about, culture and women and empowerment and misogyny, all these different things. I'm like, I've got years and years and years of case studies of one-on-one interactions with women who I've photographed, right? And like, same with you, same with, that's how Terry Hoffer talks about it. It's like, I got a lot of like, where I was like, wait a second, there's a really common themes here. There's things that all these
Hmm.
women, regardless of, age, skin color, religion, like all these different things, they all kind of are saying these same things or having these same
Hmm.
realizations or having the same shame or the
Hmm.
same whatever. Interesting. There must be something to this. And like, oh, these are also things I've had too. And especially as someone who grew up under very high control religion, and that was a part of my life into adulthood, I see so much of how just, my body was, I was convinced and I was, you know, socialized so that my body didn't belong to me. And
Right.
like you said, a
And I'd
reclamation.
like to say that that is literally why I think that boudoir has had such a hard time becoming mainstream, because it's us taking our bodies back
Yeah,
and saying, this is what makes me feel sexy and embodied. And I don't care how that makes you feel. And I think that's why people have such a major problem with boudoir, and why, you know, it's not like commodifying women's bodies in the
yeah,
traditional capitalistic sense, right? Obviously, as a boudoir photographer, I'm making money because this is my full-time job, and right, but you I've had the argument before that, people have said to me, well, don't you feel like you're doing the same thing as these uh, photographers who shoot for, major swimsuit corporations that only shoot a certain type of body and, subscribe to a very narrow beauty standard. And I don't feel like I'm doing that. I feel like I'm doing the exact opposite. I
mhm.
feel like I'm providing a service to women that is changing how they feel about themselves and how they see themselves when they look in the mirror.
Yeah. And I think that the reason that people still have a problem with boudoir in the year of our Lord 2026 is precisely why we still need to keep doing it and talking about it. Like,
Exactly.
oh, interesting. Like, I've just gotten so curious about these things, right? I'm like, why don't we,
Hmm.
why don't we ask a few questions to get to the surface of like why you feel that way? One thing I've always said is you can tell someone's view of women based on their reaction to seeing a boudoir photo of someone, especially someone they know,
100%. That is so
right?
real.
Good for
Yes.
her. Or, oh, interesting. Whatever. It's
Hmm.
like, oh, once you see that, like, what does that trigger in you? What do you
Right.
feel about that? And it's like, I used to, which I wrote a whole article in PPA magazine in October. If you just Google my boudoir philosophy, Mitzi Starkweather, it'll come up.
We'll link it for sure.
Yeah, which was honestly such an honor to like, it's like the thesis of my life's work essentially. But to
So
share
awesome.
that, yeah. And I talk about in the article how like when I started doing boudoir like full time, when I started doing it even part time in 2009, I was literally in Bible college. Okay. A couple years later, I get married to someone who enters full time pastoral ministry in the evangelical church in the small town in Missouri, like in the Midwest. Okay. So like,
Wow.
I had was like, okay, if I'm going to do it, but I felt so drawn to doing it, and I'm like, hey, it's only for women who are married or going to get married and give to their husbands. Like that's what I believed, and
Wow.
I know a lot of people still believe that, and so really through the article, I just want people to get curious as to why, like what does that say about what you believe about women, about their bodies, about you know because when we say like what's your view of sex, it's like I think like that's your view of creation, like that is our life force energy,
For
right?
your
And
view of pleasure.
pleasure, oh absolutely, who deserves it, who can have it, who can't, who owns it, who
Mm.
all of that, like you said, like the commodification, but it just goes so deep into truly like these distilled values that our culture has around women especially. And so Yeah, it's like, do you photograph
Yes.
men too? Absolutely. They have their own insecurities, but then when they come into the studio, they're often, because of the patriarchy, too afraid to say what those insecurities are. Like women will tell you their insecurities all day. Most men won't. They just close off and I would never, because
And might not even know them. Might not even know them.
no, right, exactly. And it's like, and that's why when a man does come to my studio and they like express their vulnerability or something, I like commend them for that because I'm like, they express their insecurity. I'm like, that's actually, I know that that goes against like everything you were raised to do. So I appreciate
Yes.
you like saying that, like, here's how we can work through that together, and just that very open, honest communication, right? But anyway, I digress. I don't know where I got on. I
No,
could
but
go all day.
and a huge part of our jobs is making that safe emotional space for people. And I think that's why I so wanted to do this series and talk with you about all this stuff. And the next couple of talks that we're going to talk about the feminine gaze, we're going to talk about ethics, we're going to talk about why photographers like us should have our own therapists, and so much more. But this was absolutely amazing. I absolutely loved talking to you. I think we talked about so much that is important, and I'm excited to share this with everybody.
Oh, I'm excited too. Thank you for asking me to be a part of this with you. It's truly this has flown by. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're already done. Okay, can't wait for the next talk. This is great stuff.
Me too. All right, we'll talk soon. But until then, I'm going to link that chat that you had discussed. And yeah, look for more things happening with Mitzi because she's going to be releasing something pretty big and exciting pretty soon. And we'll talk again soon.
All right, thank you.
Bye.